synonymy is associated with some theoretical problems, which at present are still an object of controversy. Probably the most controversial among these is the problem of criteria of synonymy. To put it in simpler words, we are still not certain which words should correctly be considered as synonyms, nor are we agreed as to the characteristic features which qualify two or more words as synonyms. Traditional linguistics solved the problem with a conceptual criterion and defined synonyms as words of the same category of parts of speech conveying the same concept, but different either in shades of meaning or in stylistic characteristics. Some aspects of this definition have been criticized. The term shades of meaning has been condemned for its vagueness and for its lack of precision. In contemporary research on synonymy, semantic criterion is frequently used. In terms of componential analysis, synonyms may be defined as words with the same denotation or the same denotative component but differing in connotations or in connotative components. Though not beyond criticism, this approach has its advantages and suggests certain methods of analyzing synonyms. A group of synonyms may be studied with help of the dictionary definitions, which is called definitional analysis. In this work, the data from various dictionaries are analyzed comparatively. After that, the definitions are subjected to transformational operations, which is called transformational analysis. In this way, the semantic components of each analyzed word are singled out. Here are the results of the definitional and transformational analysis of some of the numerous synonyms for the verb to look. To stare is to look plus steadily, lastingly, plus in surprise, curiosity, etc. To glare, to look plus steadily, lastingly, plus in anger, rage, fury. To gaze, to look plus steadily, lastingly, plus in tenderness, admiration, wonder. To glance, to look plus briefly, in passing. To peep, to look plus steadily, lastingly, plus by stealth, through an opening or from a concealed location. To peer, to look plus steadily, lastingly, plus with difficulty or strain. The common denotation convincingly shows that according to semantic criterion, the words grouped in this list are synonyms. The connotative components represented on the right side of the list highlight their differentiations. In modern research of synonyms, the criterion of interchangeability is sometimes applied. According to this, synonyms are defined as words which are interchangeable at least in some contexts, without any considerable alteration in denotational meaning. This criterion of interchangeability has been much criticized. Every or almost every attempt to apply it to this or that group of synonyms seems to lead one to the inevitable conclusion that either there are very few synonyms or else that they are not interchangeable. It is sufficient to choose any set of synonyms, placing them in a simple context to demonstrate the point. Now, let us take, for example, the synonym from the above list. He glared, the synonyms from the above list. He glared at her, which means he looked at her in anger, in rage, in fury. He gazed at her. In other words, he looked at her steadily and attentively probably with admiration or interest. He glanced at her. In other words, he looked at her briefly and turned away. He peered at her. In other words, he tried to see her better, but something prevented. Maybe darkness, fog, weak eyesight, etc. These few examples are sufficient to show that each of the synonyms creates an entirely new situation, which so sharply differs from the rest that any attempt at interchanging anything can only destroy the utterance, devoiding it of any sense at all. In a related context, all these words, like I like you, but I cannot love you, Romeo should smile, not grin, etc. Yes, we discussed a lot of examples of this kind. So all these words clearly demonstrate that substitution of one word for another is impossible. It is not simply the context that formally binds them in their proper places, but the peculiar individual connotative structure of each individual word. Consequently, it is difficult to accept interchangeability as a criterion of synonymy, because the specific characteristic of synonyms and the one justifying their very existence is that they are not, cannot, and should not be interchangeable, in which case they would simply become useless in the vocabulary. Though all this does not mean that no synonyms are interchangeable. One can find whole group of words with half-erased connotations which can readily be substituted for one another. The same girl can be described as pretty, good-looking, or beautiful. Yet, even these words are far from being totally interchangeable. Yes. In conclusion, let us stress that even if there are some synonyms which are interchangeable, it is quite certain that there are also others which are not. A criterion, if it is a criterion at all, should be applicable to all synonyms and not to just some of them. Otherwise, it is not acceptable as a valid criterion.